On this Monday of the octave of Easter, we continue to wish you a happy Easter, and we continue to celebrate the Lord's resurrection, saying Jesus Christ is risen from the dead, just as he said, Alleluia. Today in our readings, we hear about a couple examples of great witnesses to Jesus' resurrection. Peter, who goes out and proclaims to the crowds that he's experienced the risen Lord and that he's risen from the dead. And Mary Magdalene in the gospel, who meets Jesus in the garden and then is told by Jesus to go and proclaim what she's just experienced to her fellow disciples who are gathered in another place. And both of these are great examples for us as we consider our own vocation to be witnesses, the call that God's placed on each of our own hearts to share our own experiences of him. And I think these readings give us a clue as to why as well. As we see Mary Magdalene going to the other disciples, we can think about how the fact that the disciples were just coming off of this experience of Jesus just having died, and they were so sad. And maybe as they heard some of these experiences of Jesus' resurrection, they might first have thought, oh, well, that person might have just been hallucinating, they're in their grief, they were just imagining or just had a dream that Jesus was there. But then when they see not just one person, but many people start to have very different encounters with Jesus, they might be lifted up in their faith and come to realize, no, truly he has been risen from the dead. So that experience that each of them has had, as they share it, it helps to confirm them in their faith. And who knows, maybe even one of these experiences of Jesus that some of these disciples had, when they share it with each other, maybe it was something just that the other person needed to hear to encourage them in that moment. So how important and beautiful it was for them to share their experiences and their encounters of Jesus together. And we see in the first reading today, too, Peter, of course, proclaiming to the crowds this experience of Jesus. And as he does so, it's a way of inviting them in to come to know Jesus, who is not dead, but he's alive, and he's interested in meeting each one of those people that gathers outside there at that moment of Pentecost. How amazing and how important that experience of witness. And so in our own lives, too, we think about how God has called us to be witnesses. And I think it's so important, especially these days, where we're all in difficult times, just being isolated due to the coronavirus. How important for us to share our own experiences of faith, with each other, with our fellow disciples, so that as we share our faith and our encounters with Jesus, even in these difficult times, we can each help each other to remember, yes, the Lord is alive and still active in each of our lives. He hasn't abandoned us. He hasn't left us. And as we share our own experiences of him with each other, we help each other to be lifted up in faith. And maybe even one thing that Jesus has spoken to us will be a great help to somebody else as we share it. And maybe even in these days, too, in our experiences of work, maybe working from home, or, maybe we have a meeting scheduled and we jump in virtually online a couple minutes in advance and people are talking and they're saying, well, how has your experience of this been? Maybe that can be a moment where you can be a witness, where you can say, one thing that's been a great support to me in this time is my faith, my prayer, the way that I stay connected to Jesus and what he's doing. And think about what a great witness that could be for those people who maybe aren't people of faith. You could be like Peter, proclaiming your own experience of the risen Lord and helping them to come into a relationship with him as well. So in these days, we see Mary Magdalene and Peter as great witnesses of the risen Lord from their own encounters with him. And as we experience Jesus in our own life of faith, let us be witnesses too, which we're all called to do, to share our faith in our encounters with the risen Lord, so that we can be witnesses to the Lord's resurrection, just like Peter and just like Mary Magdalene.